to the folks who were under the altar. The folks under the altar were concerned about time. They were concerned about what was coming. They were concerned about the apocalypse, and they were concerned about how long it was going to take to get through it all. And I can identify with their situation. You see, first of all, they were situated under the altar. They were hiding from the unseen threat. There's no direct threat, you would see, that's pointing directly at them, but they knew that there was God's wrath about to come, and that was a scary thought, and so they were hiding under the altar. That is an interesting consideration to me because of the founding principles of the Methodist Church. One of the founding principles of the Methodist Church is that we are all seeking God in order to flee the wrath to come. That's what Methodist folk do, is they worry about the wrath to come, and we prepare ourselves to avoid God's wrath. And let me just pause right there to say that God's wrath is nothing to be laughed at. It may sound old school, it may sound old-timey, but God's wrath is real. And if you have any Christian sense at all, you need to know that God's wrath is something that you don't want to see. God's wrath is something that's a good thing to get away from. God's wrath is something that is good to avoid. Now, for those who think that sin is a minor issue, let me just say that sin is still sin. And for those who think that sin is a thing that that we can somehow or another just wink at, I want to remind you that God's wrath is coming. And those who would sin, unbeknownst to them, sin is what brings God's wrath upon you. But to those under the altar, they were the ones who had died because they had remained faithful to the truth of Jesus Christ. And they had been persecuted and died for their faithfulness. And some thought that faithfulness might not be worth it. It might not be worth it if the only thing you were going to get for being faithful is persecution and imprisonment and death. But they had stayed the course, and they had died in the Lord, and now they found themselves under the altar of God. And they were asking God, they said, how long before the ones who were unfaithful, how long before the folks who have done this to us, how long before the folks who are not paying attention to sin are going to be repaid for their unfaithfulness? You see, they were not asking the question, just how long. They were really saying, Lord, it's been a long time coming. We've been under this altar for a while, and we haven't seen you move. We've been watching all the things go on around us, and it seems like you're an awful long time coming. And we're asking the question today, how long are you going to wait? How long is it going to take for you to wake up and react? How long before you take care of folks who are acting a fool while we're sitting in church trying to do what you've asked us to do? How long, oh sovereign and holy God, are we supposed to wait? But they were the faithful ones. They were the faithful ones, and I can identify with that. I can identify with what they were going through. You see, because we who are in the church today are surrounded by things on this earth that just don't make sense. We're surrounded by things that are a discouragement to us because it seems like justice has been an awful long time coming. And those under the altar, you see, they had already seen the beginnings of God's wrath. They had been under the altar for some time. And under the altar, they had peeped out. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the 6th chapter of the book of Revelation. But if you've read any portion of that, I'm sure you have heard about the white horse. You see, the folk under the altar, they had already seen the first seal broken. And the first seal was one of 7 seals that was on a scroll that only the Lamb of God was authorized to open. And when he broke that first seal, the white horse came out. And the folk under the altar had seen the white horse come out. And the white horse was a threat of conquest. The white horse was something that was a threat of conquest by foreign powers. And it sounds a lot like what we see when we hear of wars and rumors of wars in far places. It's not on our own soil yet, but we hear about war in Afghanistan and war in Iran and war in Iraq and war in the Sudan. And we who are here today might just say, Lord, where is peace? And see, I can identify with that. You see, it seems to me like it's been a long time coming. So we all might ask, how long, Lord, must we wait? Those under the altar, they had already seen the red horse come out. The red horse who was given the authority to take peace away from the earth. And it sounds a lot like what we live with right now when we see all kinds of gangs in our midst, and we see robbers and thieves in our neighborhoods, and we have personal safety issues always confronting us. And we here today might simply say, Lord, where is security? You see, we're being faithful to you, oh God, but yet we have to watch when we walk through the dark because we don't know who's lurking around the corner trying to get to us. Where is your peace? It seems like it's been an awful long time coming. How long, Lord, must we wait? Those under the altar had already seen the black horse who had come out. The black horse come out with a balance in his hands, and he was the one showing the inequality and the imbalance in the economy and in a society where the dollar is not worth what it used to be. A full day's wages might only buy you enough to get through the day. One bag of groceries is going to cost you $50. A car that used to cost you $4,000 or $5,000 is now going to cost you $40,000 or $50,000. A house that used to cost you $5,000 or $10,000 is now going to cost you $200,000 or $300,000. A rich person can't buy anything that's really going to show them as being rich because dollars simply isn't going to get you as far as it once did. And some